All right. Welcome, basketball fans, to HoopsTracker Podcast, the go-to podcast for Colorado basketball. Jerry Howard, your host. Today, we have a special guest. We have Sandy Sundine, one of the top referees at CHSAA in the region. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today, Jerry.
Sandy, this is awesome. It's been fun talking to you before leading up, just getting ready for all of this. Today, we really want to talk about what are some of the new rules that we need to know about, maybe review some of the old ones like flopping, my favorite, but talk a little bit about what to expect this season. And then next year, which is going to be a lot of fun when we switch to a clock, which it's like we're 10 years behind there, but I'm so glad we are. And we'll talk and cover about those. So what should we see this year coming in?
I think a couple new rules that are really coming to mind right now is, I think one of the biggest ones is slapping the backboard. So I think this is a really good rule to put into place this year, just because it takes away some of the guessing. I think it helps establish for the referees to know if a backboard is slapped and the ball has the chance to go in or touches the glass, then it's automatically goaltending. It used to be a technical foul. The problem is that I didn't call it because now you're penalizing an athlete for technical foul for slapping the backboard. And then if the ball goes in, now you're giving the other team 2 points plus the technical. So it could be a 4-point play. So
Plus, they get the ball back.
correct. So now we're 6 to 7 point play. So that's a tough one to ever call. So people, it was not called very often for that reason. So what I like about this rule now is slapping the backboard. It's going to be a goaltending call. So if you come in and hit the board and it's got some, vibration and the ball has any chance of going in, it's a goaltending call. So I think I'm excited about that coming into play this year.
And they have to. So I see it a lot of times, right? Players are coming in but once that ball hits the backboard, then if the player touches the backboard, then it's just automatic, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think again for players, like stop slapping the backboard, so that I think that will clean up the game just like other rules that have gone into place. I think the other one that's coming in is the offensive goaltending. On the offensive goaltending, a lot of times, especially like on a 3-point shot or whatever, we have to determine, is it a pass or is it a shot? So I think that one, putting into that, eliminating anything that now we don't have to determine, is that a pass or a shot? Because we're trying to determine something that we have no control over there.
Okay. So what would that look like? I mean, it's just basically a point guard throws it up and he airballs it and the guy catches and goes in. I mean, that's basically
That's
okay.
basically it. Yeah. So, well, that was a pass. No, that was a shot. You assume a kid's going to try to shoot, not pass at the backboard.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but then you got to watch about I remember George Washington, Smoky Hill. They got those players that, man, they can fly and they will do some amazing alley-oops and stuff like that too.
right.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly right. One of the rules that we had last year, and a lot of times it gets missed, and players get surprised about it, and coaches get surprised about it, and that's where a player leaves from inbounds and leaves inbounds, goes out of bounds, and returns back inbounds. We don't do a good job of calling that sometimes, and if we watch that, it's an advantage. So you get an offensive advantage by, even if you went on your own, and the kids don't realize that they go out on their own. But what happens is they go out of bounds and they're the first to catch it. Well, they don't have a defensive player out of bounds with them. So that's a delay of game warning. And the signal should be your arm straight out. So the officials know that that's the signal. So that would signal to the coach. And then when you call it, everybody's kind of surprised because it's not called a lot and it's not called correctly. So I think this year with that, it used to be a technical foul and now it's a delay of game. It's a violation and the other team gets the ball back.
So if a player goes out of bounds and comes back in, how long does he have to be back in before he can catch the ball? Is it maybe the defensive player has to come back on him, or is it like a 2-second rule or 3-second rule?
Yeah, that's a great question. Last year, the ruling stated that they had to be engaged in the offense. Well, now I'm determining if that player is engaged are they part of the offense or not? And now this year it's if they come back in and they're the first to touch. So as the lead official, the official on the baseline, so you have to be aware of where's the ball, and then you see the player come out. So as soon as you see that player come out, you should extend your arm in a fist straight out, and then watch to see if that player, you have to pay attention, and you watch to see if that player is the first one to catch it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you could stand there. You can't obviously move the perimeter with passes along, pass the ball along the perimeter. But if if it's the top of the key and he's the first to get it, she's the first to get it, it's a delay game violation.
Now, this is a common thing, right? After a basket is scored, sometimes teams will pick the ball up, pass it to another player that's out of bounds, go in, they pass it back to them.
Right.
Would that apply then?
No, because we're establishing our inbounds offense then.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. That's super helpful. No, I mean, when you start introducing some of these new rules, you're thinking about like, well, what about this? What about this
Right.
situation? And
Right.
no, this is really helpful.
Exactly. The other thing that's come up this year now is they've clarified definition of a player in terms of timeouts.
Okay.
So now this year is coach calls a timeout. So as I grant the timeout and the players are going to the bench, well, you have players that are on court and you have bench personnel. So as I grant the timeout, and as soon as I tell the clock operator to start the timeout, everybody is now bench personnel. So if the student athlete that's coming off the court says something inappropriate that warrants a technical foul, they're now bench personnel. So they're not a player on the court. So now they're bench personnel. So here's the caveat to that.
Yeah.
So that athlete now gets a technical foul. The coach also gets an indirect technical foul. So now the coach loses his coaching box. Correct. Yeah.
All right. Well,
It doesn't happen very often, but it's the coach has to take care of the kids as they leave the court. And then they're still bench personnel until the referee hands the ball to the player. And once they hand the ball to the player, now the timeout is over.
Is over. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, well, coaches teach players keep their mouth shut, period.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Stop chirping, stop doing whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other one is I think it's a big rule, is the throw-in spot now.
Okay.
Okay, so last year we had to draw an imaginary line from the free throw line down
Do
to
you want us? Let's share. Here, let me share my screen because I think
Perfect.
I know what you're talking about, and we can actually see exactly. So here's now. Let's talk about this.
Okay. So last year what we had to do is we had to draw an imaginary trapezoid from the free throw corners down to the corner of the baseline and then through the top of the key. So now you have to decide, okay, so here's where this comes into play. This comes into play for a violation, a timeout, or a foul. So we need to know the location of the ball for any of those reasons. So it used to be, now if the ball goes out in the corner, is it on the sideline corner? Because if it's a sideline corner, we'd have to take it up to the number 2 spot, which is the 28-foot line. If the ball went under that diagonal, then you'd have to take it to the number 1 spot, which is 3 feet outside the lane line.
Right.
So now what's happened is they've made it much easier. If it's in the 3-point arc, everything's going to go to the baseline.
Okay.
So that helps. And then if it's above the 3-point arc, it's going to go to that number 2 spot, which is the 28-foot line.
Okay. So you don't have to do this imaginary line or whatever. It's just
Correct.
you got the arc and that's it. It's either inside, outside, and there you go.
Right. So now what's important about that, it's also in the back court and the front court. Last year it was just the front court.
Okay.
So as coaches and players, the first thing that is I wish, and it says that, in the rule book, it talks about a visual court marking. Well, we haven't got to the point where we're marking. That's 3 feet. That number 1 spot is 3 feet from the lane line. And we always have to players scoot over. Well, that's why we tell them to scoot over, because that's the spot where they should be standing when they take the ball out of bounds. And then obviously that number 2 is the 28-foot line, which is the coach's box. But now you have to think about, as a coach, if you want to call a timeout and if you want it on the baseline, you need to be inside of that 3-point arc.
Okay.
And the same thing as if you want it on a sideline, to be outside of the 3-point arc.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the same thing happens now in the backcourt. So if you're in the backcourt now, so if you're in the backcourt and you have a jump ball, that's a violation. Well, where's the jump ball? Is it in the backcourt within the 3-point arc or outside the 3-point arc? So coaches are going to have to pay attention, I think. For some coaches, it's going to matter as far as play selection or call selection, I think.
Got you.
Everything except a violation. So if a tip ball. So if a tip ball gets tipped out of bounds, then it goes to wherever it was tipped at.
Okay. All right.
Let's see. What's another one? Continuous motion. That's a point of emphasis this year. There's now a definition in our rule book that talks about when a player is attempting or a try for a basket with a step or a pivot that started their continuous motion. So as referees now, we need to look at that to go, are they in the act of shooting with the continuous motion by stepping or creating a pivot motion to go towards the basket? That's about, now we're going to put a whistle on it. Is that a foul or not?
Well, and that brings up a good point, because like a lot of the kids are trying to do Euros now, and a lot of them don't slow down enough to actually do it right.
Right.
Looks like they're traveling, but yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Is there any other ones? I was trying to think of the rest of them. There's the basket interference. We talked about that with
Yeah,
slapping or striking the backboard.
yeah.
If you contacting the backboard of the ring, if a player illegally contacts the ring or the backboard and gets an advantage with a scoring attempt, it eliminates that subjective intent there for us.
Let's talk about flopping, because I think that's a big one. That's a big one. And last year, I think, was the first year we started calling it, and it was really hard. Talk a little bit about that rule, because I think I think it's a little bit misunderstood. And
So,
flopping is on the block, right?
right.
For a charge, or flopping on defense, or
Offensively, defensively,
yeah,
anywhere. And
yeah.
those are
Talk about what
sometimes.
that looks like. I mean, just give a couple examples to help us out.
So it's interesting because I think that's cleaned up the game some from last
Mhm,
year, as from the
mhm,
beginning of the season towards the end of the season. I think
mhm.
athletes have stopped doing it. I don't know that they've gotten better or we've gotten better, but I think that they've stopped doing it. And it used to be that you would always give the person like get up. And I look now, if I'm telling a player to get up, I should probably be giving a signal for a flop, which is
Yeah,
just taking your arms and going straight down. It could be an offensive player where they're dribbling and then they bob their head back
uh-huh,
because they think the defensive player has created contact. What we have to do is be aware of, did the defensive player create that contact? So as we referee, our points of emphasis to referee is always to referee the defense.
yeah,
And so now we have to watch that defensive player to go, did they create contact? Because you're trying to draw a foul. And there's
uh-huh,
times we're not smart enough to recognize, was there defense? Is there contact on the defense, or
right.
are they trying to sell it for us? And there's times we'll buy into it, and then they got that foul drawn. So this
Talk about a
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, talk to me about a kid that legitimately is trying to get into that space to create a charge, right?
Correct.
Because you see the flopping a lot there.
Yeah.
And is there contact by the offense, or is there not? And then obviously the kid's got his feet planted, but if he's standing there like this and then
Yeah.
he starts moving backwards,
Right.
how, what's the difference between that and, "Woo, I'm throwing my
Right.
arms up," and all of that, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I'm on the
Well, that's
roller coaster ride.
right. That's what you try to watch for is with the athletes, is to make sure that they keep that position and all the way until that offensive player hits them. But then I think sometimes we have to give some athletes a little bit of grace to go, these kids they're taking hard charges. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be standing there taking it sometimes and to know it's coming. So we have to be kind of aware of the situations of what they're trying to attempt to do. These kids are they're trying to get a charge called
Yeah,
against them. So
yeah.
that's what their intent is most of the time. So I
Mhm.
think that flop is starting to clean up as
Yeah,
far as falling. The one that's still tricky is the three-point shot.
right.
When the offensive player kicks their leg out often, and then they'll go down as a flop, is to understand, again, if we referee the defense and referee that well, we'll see where the contact was or if there was any contact.
Quick question. A kid does his three-point shot, makes it, and flops, then no basket, right?
Well, here's the deal, that basket's gonna go. So
Okay,
the first one is gonna be a warning.
okay,
So we've got to understand where the ball is at when we just give the signal. So
right,
if the basket goes, then we can kill it.
okay,
Give that signal as he does it, and then if it goes, we're gonna count it. So now we have a flopping warning,
yeah.
but then anytime anybody on that team flops again, it's a technical foul.
And if they make the shot, will it still count, or will it not count?
It's gonna count, yeah, and then it's a
Okay, so
technical.
they make the shot, they flop, now it's a technical,
It's
you
the
have to
second
shoot
time,
the second time, after the one, obviously. Okay,
correct.
interesting. Okay,
So
alright,
now we have to be really good about making sure that everybody knows, as much as we can control, that we've already given one warning for a flop.
okay,
The coaches need to know, the intent is that, or the hope is that the players would know that you've had one warning. Anybody else does it, it's now a technical foul,
gotcha.
right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say this summer and in the fall league, I saw a lot of flopping, and
Yeah.
they were calling it. I mean, good for them. The referees were calling it, and there
Right.
was a couple times where I'm like, "Did you guys call that?" "Oh, yeah, we're calling it. Don't worry, we're on it." Because you see that first 1 or 2, and it's like, "Oh my goodness." And then
Right.
especially, right, summer ball, you see it all the time, and they don't
You know,
really call it as much there.
talked to a friend of mine that referees college basketball as well, and we got to talking about, like, what's her keys into calling flopping, and one of the things that stuck with me was that if it's laughable, she goes, "That needs a whistle." Because there's times you're trying to make that decision, and it's
I love
exactly
it.
right. I'm like, if I have to shake my head and go, "Oh my goodness," then I need to put a whistle on that flop. So
Mhm.
that's helped me a little bit on the guidelines to understand the intent of the rule and the intent of players sometimes. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna kind of go
Oh,
by this year.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. That was
Yes.
one of the things I've always had questions about.
Yep. A couple things we're gonna talk about. Is there any other I've got some points from last year's rules.
Talk about contact on the ball handler because I think, everybody, right? The two-hand rule, and you see kids, it's like a football game, right? They're pushing, I'm not touching. But then talk about, hips, legs. I mean, when they're right up into them, talk about how that works.
Right. So the first thing when you talk about hands, you've got a hot stove touch.
Mm,
Got goal is to get your hand off and on and then off again. It's ironic in the women's college game, it was one hot stove touch, and then this year they changed it back to it can be multiple. I think it was so hard to call and it would interrupt the flow of the game as well.
yeah,
So the same thing in high school, you can do multiple, but it's got to be on and off. Part of refereeing obviously is making athletes make us make decisions. And we have to be ready to make that decision and make it consistently.
mhm,
So what I look at, I think many referees is a redirect. Are
mhm,
you redirecting that player because of the physical hand touch or the hip check or redirect? So you got redirect and freedom of movement. I can't get by you because you just stuck your hip out or you stuck your leg out. And sometimes it happens so fast that we miss it, but
right.
we need to be diligent about that player is trying to get to the other end of the floor or drive to the basket and can't because a defensive player redirected them. So their freedom of movement and they're redirecting. So that's kind of one of the key points that I look for.
Key point. So I used to play football. And I
Mhm.
know how to move somebody by just pressing one hand on their hip. I can so if I'm redirecting them with one hand, legitimate, right? But if it can't be like for 5 seconds I've got my hand on them. I have to be like you said, the hot touch. But if I can redirect him enough and then I'm doing that, I should be okay as long as it's a hot touch.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes I think we have to understand the definition is also legal guarding position. And that's the thing that, trying to focus on, paying attention to the defense is legal guarding position. So legal guarding position is 2 feet facing your opponent, 2 feet facing. Am I 2 feet? Am I facing them? So if I'm sideways, am I taking it? If I'm facing him and I've got 2 feet, that's your legal guarding. And there's athletes that'll say, why is that not legal guarding? Well, you're not facing them.
Well, to be fair, and this is just me, right? I can guard a player. Usually I have one of my feet is 6 inches back,
Correct.
but that's still facing them.
Legal guarding, yes.
But when I turn a little bit more where it's more like I'm at a 45.
Right, right. Now we have to make a decision.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And then as the player's driving, I have to have the ability to turn and go with him. So then I'm still technically facing him. So I wouldn't unless I got two hands on him, I wouldn't get called for a foul, right?
Right.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And for parents and coaches, right? I mean, we have to give these referees grace because I think these split second decisions and what they see and sometimes they question and then, everybody's human. Everybody's going to make a mistake and it's okay. But, you just got to give a little grace here because they're the ones helping keeping your son on the court and these games going. Because if we didn't have referees, we wouldn't have games.
Well, and talking to that, I mean, the game's gotten so much faster. The boys' game's gotten faster, the girls' game's gotten faster, and we've got to be able to referee and ready to referee at that speed. And like you said, you're making split second decisions all the time on the court,
Yeah.
all the time. And I always think about an athlete gets upset, if you missed a call, and it wasn't an intent to miss a call, and it's the same thing. You missed a shot, There's gonna be
Right.
a time where we're gonna miss a call, not with
Right.
intent,
Right.
necessarily that it happens.
Well, and you have this going on, you're thinking through the rules as it's going continuously. It's almost like a supercomputer flipping images through your head and you're trying to decipher and,
Right. Yeah,
no, that
exactly.
mean, I totally get that. No, this is great. Sandy, this is awesome. What are some other big, I guess, rule changes for this year? And then we can talk a little bit about what's coming in the future.
I think we went through the big ones. Like I
Mhm.
said, the court, the slapping the backboard, the
Right.
goaltending rules,
Mhm.
and then the location of the 4 spots,
Sure.
on the court to throw in. One of the things I wanted to point out because I don't know that even coaches, oh, there's one other one for this year. To talk about the intentional foul to end the game is to
Right.
know again is for us as referees to be aware of the intent of that rule is
Yeah.
that just because you grab a jersey doesn't mean that's gonna be, if coach is calling red or something, that doesn't mean we need to put a whistle on an intentional foul right away. The 2 things that were from last year that I wanted to bring up, it's just some more knowledge for coaches, I think, is that if you have multiple scorekeepers, and there's
Mhm.
a discrepancy in the scorebook, you can confer with another scorekeeper. And sure enough, it happened very first game of the year last year, very first one that we had a discrepancy in a double overtime game, and the home book didn't match the score. And I'm like, shoot, we have this new rule here. So the question I had was, okay, I know that this is a new rule that the home scorekeeper can confer with another scorebook, which is helpful to know that as a
Which
coach.
is the opponent, right? I mean, it's the home is the
Correct.
opponent, but there could be a third scorebook.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Well, then my question was, is I didn't know, does that scorekeeper have to be sitting at the table? And
Mhm.
after I did some checking, that person does not need to be at the table. We had a parent that was in the stands that was the opposing team's scorekeeper,
Yeah.
and then we could confer with those. And it happened, 2 or 3 times last year during the season. So I think as a coach to know if that book doesn't if you're a visitor the home or visiting, team,
Mm.
you have the ability to ask for conferring with that score with another
Right.
a scorekeeper.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great to know because I know when there is confusion and then the 2 books at the table aren't matching, then like you said, there might be one might have a difference in the score, one miss this, one might miss that.
Yeah, because we
That
certainly don't have a play-by-play, it'd be nice if we had color commentating and play-by-plays, to check the score, so I think that error. The other one, and this one you don't see very often, it's just more of a, just to know if a player doesn't give the ball to the referee right away, delays giving the ball to the referee before it was a technical foul, now it's
Mhm.
going to be a warning, and then any subsequent delays after that will be a technical foul. That
Okay.
happens occasionally, but it's more of that's not an automatic technical foul.
Okay. Now, this is one big question I have. I've been at some games where I've seen some refs tee up coaches not once, but 2 times really fast.
Right,
And the first one, we'll just give the ref the benefit of the doubt, might have been warranted. But
right,
what's interesting in the couple games that I'm thinking of, the coach was talking to a player and the ref just bam, like set him up the second time.
right,
Talk about I mean, to me, this is where we need to have a relationship and you build and establish that relationship and like, "Hey, coach, come on now. We need to." But, other like last year, I was at a game, no kidding, a ref teed up a parent. I was sitting next to the parent. She didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. Now, the ball came over, she tossed it back, and he teed her up and thought she said something, and she didn't. And then, like, not even 30 seconds later, goes to the main scores table and told the AD he had to escort this person out. And I'm like, I'm sitting here like, I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, even though I'm taking pictures, I'm, like, right there. And I'm
right.
like, "What just happened?" Help Now, you weren't there, but help me explain when referees, I guess, at the end of their fuse or we're getting there. Is there any accountability with the other refs to be able to talk to them like, "Hey, no, Bob, whatever, just go give them a warning, let it go." I mean, talk to me about how the what is the rule, and then how can we be a little bit more gracious on both sides to that not happening? 'Cause that affects
Right,
a coach in their next game, because then they can't coach their next game, right? I mean,
right.
explain the whole rule and how that works, because I think this is important for new coaches and old coaches. So
Well, I think sometimes that I guess over the years I've refereed, I always think of the intent.
mhm,
Is a coach intentionally trying to get kicked out of a game, or what's a player going to do? If he's gathering the ball, what's he going to do? The intent is he's going to shoot the ball. So what's the intent going on the basketball court?
mm,
So those are the ways I try to look at things. Sometimes a coach wants a technical foul. That's the
yeah,
intent of it. Does a coach want two technical fouls? I highly doubt it. But as a crew, there's three of us now on a court, is
yeah,
to recognize that and to go, wait a minute. So let's take a step back. And the hope is that you get that official that called that first technical away from the coach so that whatever emotions are coming up between that official and the coach, we
mm,
can at least settle those emotions so that we don't warrant another technical right away. And with the situation with the fans, I think that we have to go back and do a little schooling to understand, what happens when you have somebody in the crowd that's being inappropriate. So
right,
number one is you go to the table and get a game manager. That's the very first thing, and then you let the game manager take care of it. I've been at schools where they're not a game manager, we can't find anybody, and you just say, "Well, somebody's gotta take care of this fan," and let them be the one to decide how to take care of them. It's not up to me to decide at that point in time
right,
unless, it's blatant that that fan needs to go. I'll let the game administration take whether you're gonna be the adult just standing next to the fan or whatever the
yeah,
case is, because sometimes we ask for more trouble when we start making a ruckus. If we gotta start booting a bunch of kids out or whatever the case is can the game manager take care of that?
yeah.
So that they can take care of everything on the outside of the 4 lines and we can take care of everything on the inside.
Now,
Uh
is the game manager always the AD, or is it just whoever's in charge of that game?
Wherever yeah, right, and the hard thing I think sometimes with lower levels, Saturday morning game, you don't know who a game manager is. It could be an administrator there. Sometimes I think the coach gets, deemed as the game manager, and having to deal with some of that. So that's where it gets, a little confusing. I think, at the varsity games, typically or most often, there's a game manager of somebody that lets you in and out of the locker rooms or, you're my point of contact. And there's other times it's not always there. What are we going to do? I mean, that's our hope and that's the intent that somebody's there.
Right, right,
Sometimes I have to walk back in the gym to find the guy with the key to let us in. And that's just
yeah.
the way it goes. Yeah.
Oh, no. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because next year we get the shot clock. I
I
am
know.
so excited because I am so tired of playing in these games where they just milk the clock. And then, I mean, I've seen championship games won by that methodology.
I
I
know
don't know.
which one you're talking about too. It happened at DU.
Oh, well, no, there's actually another one. It happened at CU, and it was on the girls' side. It was when Legacy was playing Monarch, Gail Hook versus Jamie
Yep.
Carey. And I remember this, and it was like, I mean, I am so glad because there's times where you see runs and a team might be blowing out, but they're coming back and it's full steam. And if they have an extra 2 minutes, man, this game is going to get real exciting really fast. I can tell you all the coaches. Now, one thing I was really surprised about, usually I was expecting 6A, at least 6A to try the shot clock out this year to kind of work out kinks because all those coaches are dying for it,
Yep.
especially like 5A, 6A, and nobody proposed that. I was flabbergasted. I mean,
The other thing I'm wondering is because there's 6A schools and 5A schools that cross over,
mhm.
even in their own conferences or their
Well,
own
like
league.
Mullen is a great example of that.
Correct. So
Yeah.
then I'm playing shot clock in one game and not in the other. I go to Mullen and I don't have a shot clock, and then but the rest of the league will play their shot clock.
And that's why I was thinking maybe 5A and 6A. I mean, this whole 6A classification thing is really confusing to me
Right.
because it doesn't affect the 6A teams. It doesn't affect the top bracket teams. It affects all the middle teams. And and then next year will be really interesting because now you have the school multiplier. And what's crazy is Mullen still gets to stay at 5A.
Right.
I mean, they only have 700 or 800 kids, and the multiplier, I guess, wasn't big enough. But
Wow.
schools like Holy Family have to move up. Lutheran has already moved up. Some of the other private schools. I'm glad that CHSAA took into account not to do the charter schools because most charter schools rarely ever get to the Coliseum, let alone anywhere else. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, my hope is talking about the shot clock, my hope is that this summer, we'll see a lot of shot clock practice, even for referees. It's very interesting because we had we we've played with the shot clock. I run a referee camp, and we did a shot clock at camp this summer, and we
Mm.
literally only had one violation during the whole time that was on this one
Wow.
court. 35 seconds is a long time for a shot
It
clock.
is. It is.
So that's gonna be it'll be there, but I don't think it's gonna be, just blatant and just I think it's gonna make a difference in helping the game and getting the flow of the game. So 35 seconds is a long time to get the clock down. What's gonna be interesting now is I know coaches already are planning, their offensive strategy this year as they put
Right.
in the shot clock for next year's. And then it'll get reset back to 25 if it's an offensive rebound. So you don't get a new 35,
Yeah.
right? So
I
that's
saw that actually, I think that's really good. I wish it was 30, but as I look nationally, I think 35 is the standard. And so, but teams play with a shot clock when they go to the Nike tournament in Arizona, when they go to the some of these bigger high school tournaments that are happening in December, they're playing with a shot clock if that state has one or it's a joining state. So
I think like you said, those traveling teams are they're used to it and they'll, be able to adjust. I think it's gonna be, obviously having a shot clock operator, training referees to get used to that.
Well, and I think the lower classifications is where I see teams may struggle. Like I look at 1A and 2A, right? I mean, sometimes you're watching paint dry during some of these
Mhm.
games, but it's going to move. To me, it's going to make the game faster, better, move it along, more exciting for the fans, I would
Yeah.
hope. So,
Correct. Yeah. Yep,
yeah.
exactly, and I think a lot of schools put their shot clock in the summer. I've seen a lot of schools with this, clock already on the top of the backboard. The nice thing about that is when they put the shot clock in, a lot of them have the red illuminated backboard now. So when the
Mhm.
horn goes off, the red light goes off. So that was a nice added feature that I noticed this summer working games.
Yeah, I know, that's great. Sandy,
Yeah,
this has been awesome. I really enjoyed doing this, and thank you for coming on the show and explaining,
absolutely.
'cause a lot of parents, a lot of even a lot of coaches and even players, they don't understand all the different rules, and so this has been great. I can't wait to see you in the gym. I'm curious when I'm gonna make my way down south and our paths will cross, but
Absolutely.
thank you for doing that, and thank you for being a ref for as long as you
Thanks.
have, and this has been great.
Well, it's a passion of mine, and I think over the years, relationships with people like you and, coaches and players and,
Mhm.
even, game hosts, I think that's the thing that's kept me in, and I appreciate you giving me opportunity to go through the rules. There's times where I've, had the opportunity to work in scrimmages even to let players know, like, "Let's talk about the new rules."
Yeah,
My goal is they're coming out ready so we don't have to teach them the rules with a whistle, that
yeah.
they know that in advance.
Well,
That's my
yeah.
goal.
Practices now, coaches are gym time is tough and they only have so much time and how much of the coaches are actually reviewing some of these things. We're hoping this podcast will spread like wildfire throughout the state. So kids do know and they do understand and hopefully, all the referees and I know there's a shortage of referees. That's the other thing, if parents and adults who want to still be involved in the game, this is a great way to do that and still be involved in helping the sport.
Absolutely, it is.
Cool. Well, hey, Sandy, you have a great day and thank you
Thanks.
so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate you having me.